This is what's today's date? November
29th.
29th meeting of the Police and Fire Advisory Committee. We've scheduled this meeting to be a single topic meeting, but we still need to approve the minutes, right?
Right.
So, does anybody didn't see that?
Oh, I
Next
thought,
on an agenda.
yeah, all I did was
Oh, I got one.
volunteer to help you. I didn't do the agenda.
Right, I make a motion to accept the minutes from the last meeting.
Second?
I'll second.
All opposed? Okay, so it's
All eyes.
magnanimous.
Okay.
You're supposed to say all in favor.
No, if you say all opposed, nobody says no.
Oh, I
It's
got
gotta be all yes.
Right, okay. Okay.
That way you save one step. It's like, Smith used to say, all in favor say aye, all opposed, same sign. So supposedly you would go aye again, right? But
Yeah,
nobody.
nobody
So,
ever noticed that.
this meeting was set to be a discussion of the homeless situation in Bisbee. We would like to be a focal point, because we have direct input into the city council. He's sitting right over there, even though he didn't bring any pizza. But, that's Frank Davis, council member from Ward 1. So, somebody want to open the discussion?
Well, Craig and I were just talking briefly to get an overview what Sarah does since she
Okay.
since she was volunteered for this meeting. And so why don't we just let her talk about what she does and what
Okay, that's fine.
her situation is and what we discussed in the meeting, and or
There's
it wasn't a meeting, it was just chatting.
There's no representative from the police department, so we can't arrest anybody, so.
But with a huge thank you for standing in at the
Thank
last
you.
minute for Tony Bedoya, and it's greatly appreciated. And all of us recognize how difficult that is to stand in for a guest speaker at the 11th minute before, the hour. So thank you again, Sarah.
Appreciate the fire department being here. We think this is a big enough issue that being a standing committee of the city, that gives us the ability to feedback through our council representative. And you got the floor.
Okay, well, my name is Sarah. I'm the case manager at the shelter in Tin Town. I have worked there for 3 years. There was a break, and I just came back. And it has been one of the most rewarding jobs that I've ever held, and I've held some pretty rewarding jobs. I love to help people, and we have helped a lot of people. It's a special place. It's like a family there.
What's the purpose of the shelter, Sarah?
So at first it was just an emergency shelter to house men, but in 2016 we transitioned from Bisbee Coalition to the Homeless to the Tin Town Resource Center. Now we house men, women, and families, and we offer a day program where all the clients are required to take life skill classes twice a month, seek employment, and seek stable permanent housing, and maintain a sober living environment. We offer a comprehensive case management program where we monitor the progress of each individual having their own case plan, and it's really all about accountability. So they seek self-sufficiency for themselves. We can't push them to do something that they don't want to do. And so in 2022, we are on target to have provided over 120,000 meals in the form of food bags and meals, and over 200 clients have come through in 2022. We provide a shower program where anybody can come in and shower as well as do their laundry. Since we started counting in 2018, there's been 350 clients that have come through that are still housed, employed, or receiving some benefit that they're entitled to. Currently, there's 19 either current or former clients that are working here in Bisbee. If you've ate somewhere in Bisbee, got something remodeled or done landscaping, it's a pretty surefire thing that one of our clients or former clients have helped you. We have an 85% success rate of getting the clients housed and connected with behavioral health, employed, and reunited them with their families. We help them to get engaged and establish primary care. We didn't close down during the pandemic, but we established an isolation house where they were isolated for 72 hours, and if they didn't present COVID symptoms, they would transfer to the main facility in Tin Town. We can house there at Tin Town 26 people and 8 in the isolation house. We do a Give Back Thursday where we clean the highways, the parking lots, connect with community members that can't do yard work and stuff like that, or repairs in their house, as a way to give back to and say thank you to the community that supports us. We're a nonprofit organization that's not government funded. We don't get funding from the government. However, during the pandemic and within this year, we have received government resources through the CARES Act and the Recovery Act. We deliver 100 meals a week to individuals who are homebound, as well as provide over 300 families with produce each week. Let's see here, every fourth Monday of the month, we provide 400 families with food. During Thanksgiving holiday, we provided 60 15-pound turkeys and the fixings, as well as 40 $50 gift certificates to those in need. That's really all he had for me. We want you to come and visit us and tour us. You know, the biggest thing that I see that is the breakdown in helping the homeless people is there's no follow through. There's no keeping them engaged and checking on them after we help them connect with the resources that we're able to help provide to them. And I think that is where that 15% falls into, is because there's no continued engagement with them. And you know, I mean, we don't want to coddle them because they're grown adults, you know, but some of them just don't know how to do it for themselves, and they need the encouragement. And I believe in tough love, but also in providing compassion and kindness. you know, because we've all done things we regret, we all have done things we're ashamed of, but it's really about a community that stands behind us that helps us to rise from when, you know, we fall. And like I said, I think that's the biggest area where we fall short as a community is helping them.
How do your clients come to you?
Several different ways. We have become like a halfway house for people coming out of Department of Corrections. Behavioral health agencies will contact us saying we have this homeless client who, you know, just needs some help. People call. There's so many people that call from out of state trying to come here because they've heard about our program. Just the police, you know, just last week, the Douglas Police Department called and asked us to take someone, and the truth is, not everybody who works there has like the training to be able to help certain individuals that may have mental illnesses that are beyond our capability to be able to deal with. We have so many agencies and stuff like that are just looking to house people, but unfortunately we can't help them all because, you know, we can't provide them the kind of care that they actually need. But they really come from everywhere.
So you don't, you accept them from wherever they come. So a Douglas person that's homeless could come here and enjoy the services that you're providing?
We really try to serve the people in Cochise County.
In Cochise County.
People from Tucson try to come, but we really just try to serve the people within this community, you know, within the Cochise County community.
So who's in charge of intake? You're a caseworker. Who does intake?
Well, anyone coming from a behavioral health organization, a hospital, a prison, a jail, they have to go through the executive director, which is Tony.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else, they can come through like the resident manager on duty or myself. But we do have
somebody just walks in off the street, so to speak, right?
Right, but we do have a process that we go through, like a screening process to make sure it is that we can help them, or like, because we house children, families, we can't accept, you know, somebody who has sort of sexual offense. So, you know, and as well as we can't necessarily provide like a safe haven for somebody who's experiencing domestic violence, because it is a shelter open to the public. But, you know, we have a certain amount of spaces that are available for people who have like medical ailments, like they couldn't climb up onto a top bunk, so that's part of our screening process. If all the bottom bunks are taken, you know, and someone needs a bottom bunk, unfortunately we have to turn them away because, you know, they can't get up onto a top bunk. So it's discouraging, you know, that we can't accept everybody, but there's only so much that we can do.
Do you track how many people you turn away?
I don't really know any of the numbers besides what, Tony has given me that I
Right.
have already spoke about.
Okay.
That's
Right, that's
his
okay.
domain, yeah.
I was just curious.
How do, I know there's the encampment behind Safeway,
Yes.
and how do the numbers of people that you deal with compare with the number of people that are outside of a program like what you have?
Honestly, I really can't answer that question. I do know that a lot of the people that are in those encampments do not want to be at the shelter because they are required to follow certain protocols and rules, and they're just not willing to do that. They really don't even wanna come take a shower at the shelter or do their laundry at the shelter or even eat a meal at the shelter because we do have certain rules, like you cannot be under the influence of alcohol or high as a kite and come in there, you know, because we do have children there, we do have people who are trying to be sober, and, you know, having someone who doesn't care about anybody, even themselves, can affect another individual trying to stay sober. So, generally, most of the people that are behind Safeway, they don't want to come to the shelter. But we are trying to provide help to them. I know Tony has a few programs that he's trying to put in the works to help serve them as well. We also, on Thursdays, go up to Gore Park and provide them meals as well as outreach. So, we try to help everybody, but there's only so much that we can do.
Sarah, I'm a little confused on the Thursdays when you go to Gore Park, and I thought Gore Park lunch is served all week, or can you clarify what?
I'm not sure if they serve all week. I just know that on Thursdays specifically, we provide a certain amount of hot meals and cold meals, waters, and we go up there and deliver them as well as talk to them, see if there's anything that we can do for them. Last Thursday, they were asking for some socks and some underwear and like gloves and like ball beanies.
Right.
So I went back to the shelter and got what we, you know, had, and took it back up there. Another time, one of the gentlemen had talked about food for his dog, and one of the clients had left some food behind, so we had that available to take back up there to them, so.
I think they only serve once a week.
Do you allow dogs in your shelter?
Typically, we do not. If it is a service dog, we do not want to turn away anybody with a disability, and if they have a service dog, but we generally do not take people with dogs. We have in the past, and it's kind of been a nightmare. So, you know, that is one of the stipulations in our rules, though, that if you do have a service animal, it is like your child. So, how you would treat your child.
But how do you prove it's a service dog? Other than they say it's a service dog.
Right, right.
It's not just the
that's
homeless who lie about that.
right. And you know, that's, you know, over the years, we've developed certain rules and stuff based on, you know, the interactions that we've had before. So we're always evolving and adjusting. And
So if you have emergencies, do you call 911 or the fire department or the police, or depending on the
it
nature
really
of the emergency?
depends on the nature of the emergency. We've, they have been, the ambulance and stuff have been at the shelter, a lot. And we also call NurseWise and the crisis line if somebody's in like a behavioral health crisis.
And you have staff on schedule all 24/7.
That's correct.
So how many staff does the homeless shelter have?
Making count. I think like 7 or 8 of us, and we all have various shifts that we serve.
So when the fire department responds, do you respond sometimes to the coalition?
Yes, sir.
But do you also respond elsewhere
Yes,
in homeless situations?
yes, sir.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Where do you go more often, is behind Safeway or the homeless shelter?
Mostly the homeless shelter. I wouldn't be able to give like exact numbers, but
Well, that's what-
Well,
we
there wouldn't
also,
be anybody to call you if they needed something in the behind Safeway, right?
we have been called out there definitely, and sometimes they do have cell phones where they can make phone calls. We also get a call for unconscious people on the side of the road.
Right.
It's sometimes they generate fire calls, just
Right.
campfires, stuff like that.
Do y'all keep stats on all those calls?
Not necessarily just for specifically for homeless. I could come up with some rough numbers. I could definitely come up with a hard number of how many times we go to the homeless shelter. But
I mean, off the top of your head, or if we wanted that data, you could provide it.
I would probably take me about a week, but I could come.
So you could actually come up with a report that says the number of calls to the homeless shelter, or not necessarily for categories, let's just call it calls to the homeless shelter.
Right.
Versus calls to other congregate places for the homeless or
The
problematic, is the Gulch considered a
yeah, we
a
go up there.
homeless call place, or how do you break down where your calls happen?
So basically it's either designated by an actual physical address, or it can be intersections, it can be mileposts. When it kind of comes down to intersection, mileposts or something like that, it's not necessarily documented that they're homeless because it's not part of our medical report.
Right, you wouldn't necessarily know if they were like lying there dead or unconscious.
Yeah, it would be more, the nature of the call that's documented as. But, so that's the only reason I'd be able to narrow down the homeless shelter.
Yeah, but any input would be appreciated.
We can come up with
Physical
that.
address and stuff. Yeah, so in other words, by the month, so like it's now the end of 2022, right? So we could get sort of a report in a week or 2 or
Right.
3, because we don't meet for 3 months, but
Yeah.
get it of the calls for 2022, so we could enter into the record.
Sure, I can.
So we can get some understanding, because I think, I haven't really asked anybody this question before, and maybe we'll discuss it, but if we are gonna take on this as a area in which we need to be informed, it starts with head counts and types of calls, and how much are our resources, like the fire department, being used relative to the shelter, so. But off the top of your head, for sure, the shelter, we're not sure whether there are more people there, or just more people who might call or need help, versus, do you have any idea, does anybody have any idea of a congregate group of what's out there in quote, what we keep referring to as behind Safeway? Is that like pretty transitory? Do we know how many days is an average stay for your place versus an average stay for passing through the town?
So, we accept people, initially for a 2-week period. They can stay up to 2 weeks. If
Okay.
they need beyond that, they're entered into what's called our Tier 2 program. And that is a program where every 2 weeks, they have to submit a request to stay, for the following 2 weeks. And it is all based on, they have to provide sufficient evidence of seeking employment or seeking to get like social security benefits, disability benefits, some type of income that could help them be able to sustain a home, outside of the shelter. Also, places that they are searching out to be housed at, as well as different programs that they are engaged with, whether they're seeking help from DES for food stamps and access, or CHA or community partners for behavioral health, on probation or parole, seeking help from their AA. And I go through and I verify each one of those things. And then it also, takes into account whether they're following the rules, whether they're being helpful, because when they enter into that Tier 2 program, it means that they are available for helping out in the community. If they're going to stay there for an extended period of time, then they have to attend the life skill classes, and they are required, if they're not already employed, to hold one of the positions within the Tier 2 program, and it could be the front desk assistant, where they answer the phones, they greet people coming and bringing donations, someone needing a shower, whatever. And that's teaching them, you know, skills, maybe helping them if they suffer from anxiety. It helps them to overcome, you know, some of the things that they may struggle with. And, you know, the kitchen assistant, they may help provide, you know, and cook the meals for the rest of the clients, or shelter maintenance, and they have to report to it like it's their job. If they're gonna miss it for a doctor's appointment or a job interview, they have to find someone to cover that shift. And so I have personally experienced people staying there for more than 6 months. They were huge assets to the shelter. Some of them, like, were on parole, and they could not they could not go out. They had to stay at the shelter. So, you know, they were there for an extended period of time. And
So is that your maximum, kind of 6 months? I mean, so there's
No.
Tier 1, Tier 2, and then there's a long period of time after the 1 and 2, after 2 weeks, when they might extend into a number of months if there was reason, or both they wanted to, they were qualified to, you needed them to, that kind of thing, right?
well, the Tier 2 program, it's just, you know, that initial 2 weeks, and then they can go on and, you know, do whatever it is that, you know, if they don't want to stay longer than 2 weeks. But if you're gonna stay longer than 2 weeks, it doesn't matter how long you intend to stay, you're in the Tier 2 program. And, you know, I honestly don't think that there's a cap on it. It's just as long as you need us.
Right. How many people would, you have the ability to do 26 plus 8, right? Is that what I heard you say?
Yeah, and I have experience where we were full. There was even people, when it was really cold, they would come to the shelter seeking shelter for the night because it was really cold, and we had cots set
For
up.
that too.
Yeah,
Do you
so
have the ability to expand?
I'm not sure. I don't see where we would expand unless we expanded out. I started there when it was just the emergency shelter, and they were in the process of building the new facility. And at that time, they housed them up in that building where the greenhouse is. I think it's called the Eco Oasis. And then when we had the grand opening, and you know, there was a baby, not born there, but she was pregnant and gave birth, and then we had a new baby. So there's been so many different people in and out of there, but As far as expanding, I'm not sure that we could expand other than going out.
And that's the only, that's a single location that the coalition has.
And then they also have the other isolation house, down Naco Highway. That's where they, when we were still accepting people, during COVID, that's where they housed them, and then, isolated them for a period of time, and then they came to the main shelter.
Well, you could give people, like, they could spend the night there, you have that facility still?
Yes,
Okay. And how many people can stay in there?
8.
8.
So
Okay, that's what you were talking
Right,
about.
right.
Plus
that would
okay.
be 34 people that we are able to help. Within the shelter in Tin Town, there are 4 rooms. There is the Dream Room, which is the little house outside of the shelter, and that is where primarily the families stay. Inside, there is the Hope Room, and that's part of the original facility, and that is for families as well, but if we need it for overflow, then that is where they would go. And then there's the Freedom Room, which has 6 bunks, and it houses 12, and then the Faith Room has 3 bunks that house 6. So
And then there's a shower and bathroom facility.
there's a shower and a bathroom, a shower and then a toilet and a sink in each of the Freedom and Faith Room, which is, you know, we have more men right now, so they're in the Freedom Room, and less women in the Faith. And then there's also a lobby bathroom.
So someone can come in and just take a shower,
Yeah,
okay,
and do their laundry.
do they want?
I mean, we have certain hours, because at first it was opened up and you could come whenever, but it got kind of chaotic. Mixing, you know, the clients wouldn't be able to do their laundry, and so then we just developed like an actual program, so there's hours, and that's pretty much Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, from 12 to 2, anybody can come in and shower and do their laundry from the general public. However, you know, extenuating circumstances where it's up to the discretion of the person that is on the shift, whether or not someone comes in and says, I need a shower, then outside of those hours.
I think about all the empty space in the Safeway shopping center. If someone was willing to do the same thing that they're doing. But people that come to you, they have to be willing to improve themselves.
Yes, absolutely.
Are there any plans, like, so there's a board, this is a nonprofit, there's a board, president, board members. Do you, as a staff person, do you feel like you're fully informed of kind of what the staff, not only what they're doing now, but their plans for the future? Whether
I believe that Tony is very good at communicating with us, you know, what he's wanting to do, how he's wanting to improve. He's very open with communication.
Mhm.
He's a great boss.
And, yeah, and he would work with any relationships mostly, like I don't, does the city interplay with you guys in any way, Public Works or Parks and Rec, or besides the fire and police, of course?
I do know that we have a liaison from the Cochise County Health Department. And he comes in and on at least 2 days a week and engages with the clients and informs them of the services that the health department will offer. When I worked there before, we were just connecting with Arizona at Work to get classes and various programs that they assist with to come to the shelter. And they were doing that for a while, and then when COVID hit, that kind of stopped, and it really hasn't taken back up yet.
When you go to Gore Park, is that specifically to find or see if there are people that are maybe in the streets or in houses in Old Bisbee that might wanna come and use your services? Is that kind of part of why you go there and give lunch, to kind of meet and see the ever-changing faces, or what's the purpose of it?
I think yes, to, you know, that the community, the homeless, can see that we're out there and we care. And if we can help them in any way, please let us know.
Because there's the Gore Lunch Park people, are they still doing lunches in Gore
Yes,
Park?
yes.
So you all are both doing lunches on Thursdays, or they don't do Thursday because you're doing Thursday?
I'm
How
not
does that work?
sure if they don't do it on Thursday, I just know that we do,
And what time do you do that?
at noon.
And how many people would you say come to those?
Well, we provide 10 hot meals and like 10 sandwiches, and,
So up to 20 people could be fed, their
Yeah.
choice, hot or cold?
yeah. I mean, honestly, when I've gone there and dropped it off and talked with them, the most that were there at that present time was 5.
Mhm.
But,
So you leave all the 20 meals for 5 people?
I think they trickle in.
Is there somebody staffing that?
I was gonna say, so you don't staff it?
I mean, is there somebody there overseeing what's going on, or no?
I really don't know that. I do know that, Dan Maldonado takes care of the Gore Park lunches. If I am, please don't quote me on that though.
Oh, that's okay.
Well, Captain, what kind of, I mean, is it pretty common for you to help with the homeless? Is there something that can be done that would make it easier for you? Is it a problem funding wise?
Yeah. I can't say funding wise, it's gonna be a wash typically for us, it's not we bill for our medical, a lot of times we can't bill for those. Sometimes we can, that just depends. It's not necessarily taxing on us, cause it's, everybody has medical emergencies, and, you know, a lot of them are just congregated at that one address, and that's the only reason why we end up going out there as frequently as we do. But, you know, I can't say that anything could change.
It's easier when it's formalized the way they've got.
It is, cause we don't have to walk out in the desert. There's been a lot of times we have to hike out to different camps throughout the city.
How many camps are there throughout the city?
I mean, there's sporadic, obviously Safeway's the biggest one, but I've been down on one off of Hereford. Some people do live in Zacatecas up in the caves up there. There were some that were living in caves on Bee Hill, across the highway up in Old Bisbee also, so.
Do you have more calls to the homeless shelter than you have to the Verhulst house?
Yes.
And do you have calls to the Verhulst house?
They're pretty infrequent. They're not as much, but I kind of think too is there's an age difference there too. Sometimes they have a lot of older people that already have COPD.
They do.
No,
We do.
Oh, you have a lot more of the older people.
Yeah, I mean, we've had somebody a woman as old as 83 there. Right now, there are 2 elderly, gentlemen, with health problems, you know, and that,
Do you gather their personal history, their first and last names, their social security numbers, their
Absolutely.
address in the past, if they had one, if they had family
Absolutely.
members? Would you say they're mostly from Cochise County, or that we are getting them because of our client, like from California, from Nevada? What would you say?
A lot of them are from out of state.
They are.
Yeah.
And are they more or less passing through, so to speak? Do you feel like maybe they're just kind of passing through?
Bisbee is somewhere everybody wants to come, it seems like.
We're a destination location.
Yes, very much a
Is
destination.
Is that what they say? I heard about it in Phoenix, I wanted to come down here, or I heard about it in, where other states do you see it most commonly come from?
Some people, well, a lot of people say that they heard that our shelter is a really good shelter. You know, we have people, St. Vincent de Paul and different organizations like that from Safford and Tucson, you know, trying to send them to us. A lot of people from California. There's even been quite a few from New York. They just love Bisbee.
Remember the sign, that poster that you put together, why to go to Europe, go to Bisbee?
Fly to Europe or drive to Bisbee.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there you
that's
go.
drawing the homeless on.
They show up with that poster.
Yeah.
Good, it was good.
Maybe,
I don't think
tourism
we
might
should.
get in on this, you know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what, is there any way you could expand? I mean, what if somebody,
We don't want them to
Don't-
expand, we wanna solve this damn problem and get them all
well,
not
yeah, but
to
we
come.
wanna help more people.
Excuse my French.
If
So what
there's
is- what is
there's
the-
encampments, these encampments, some of them wander in, but for the most part, they're pretty independent, right?
Yeah, it's my experience with the people with the encampment is that they desire to live this way. They don't wanna live by rules, and they would just as soon pitch a tent somewhere and live that way. We had a gentleman come from the encampment and stay with us because he was tired. And he didn't last very long, and the reason he said he left is because I didn't want to follow the rules. I wanted to drink, I wanted to get high, I didn't want to have to take a shower. And, you know, I was saying earlier, you lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink, and the reality is, if they don't want to help themselves, it's so hard to help them. And I mean, we can get through to them, it's just a process, you know, and perseverance.
Well,
It
yeah.
takes perseverance.
I mean, there's no solution to the homeless because it's as individualized as each homeless person is. And
Absolutely.
so it's not like you can solve that problem other than whether it becomes a problem when they're, because the population is not just homeless, it's criminally homeless, criminally mentally ill, criminally mentally ill, mentally ill, drug addicted, physically disabled mentally and physically, and then addicted, you know, in some fashion or another. And so the needs are so broad that it's not like, you know, any of us can wave our wand. The problem is when that population becomes greater than your tourist draw. So we feed them in Gore Park, which I've never really understood, because though it is better than feeding them on Main Street. I mean, I think this committee later needs to discuss, thank you for the fly to Europe or drive to Bisbee. Do we want to be home for the homeless, or do we want to be home for tourists in certain sections of the city? How does Bisbee want to define itself? It's always been, quote, I've been here 35 years, and when I came here, the big phrase was Bisbee's an open-air asylum. Then you have the Keep Bisbee Weird. Then you have the drugs and free sex for all. And then you have the, you know, it doesn't matter what motto you want to use that flies with the times. You know, the question becomes when a population defines a destination and it comes in conflict with people who are trying to make a living defining the population differently, like I have children that I want to be safe when they stand out on Main Street to get the bus. And I don't want to be accosted by a homeless person who dropped off of the hillside and happens to also be a pedophile. I mean, so the questions become obvious in terms of safety. Fire, I mean, God, I'm sorry, that's the biggest one. I can personally tell you that this summer I went to the city manager and I said, there are people living up on the property that you can't decide if it belongs to the state or belongs to Freeport or belongs to the city. But here's the deal, the homeless people encamped up there, when they come down to the post office or when they stay up there and they light their fires and the wind blows, they'll burn down all of Old Bisbee. So you better decide who has authority up there and do something about people who offer a threat. The homeless shelter in your presentation, Sarah, and your work, thank you for it, is one of the solutions. But the real problem that this committee, in my opinion, needs to entertain is what's the bigger picture and how do we bring the city's resources and the citizens who have many concerns everywhere from the far left that says they should be free to do whatever they want, wherever they want. When I was a probation officer, one of the things that shocked me 25 30 years ago, was when an attorney for the county told me that homeless person can defecate where he wants, smear it where he wants, and do whatever he wants because he has the freedom of expression. And I said, yeah, well, the court can't order me to go in there and live and do that. So I'm not doing that job. You know, he has to be sane enough to understand to not threaten my health, or I'm not doing this job. So we have that problem too. We have all these problems
Can I
that we
interrupt
need a
you?
solution for. Yeah.
I think you guys getting a little bit off the track here. You know, where are you going with this?
Well, where I'm going with it is as soon as Sarah's done with her
I mean, you're the
presentation.
police advisory, you know, committee.
Right.
You're not a solve the homeless problem committee.
Well,
So-
we
so,
adapted it.
Cynthia,
We adopted it.
you need to stay a little more focused here. You've talked 45 minutes so far. I mean, it's been interesting. Thank you for your presentation. But I mean, let's get focused on where you're going with this. I mean, you got.
Well, right now, we're trying to define the problem and the
But-
resources that are available,
Is that
because
your?
we already have the fire department going out to calls here, going out to calls behind Safeway, and, you know, if somebody lights the desert on fire, then it becomes a very real problem, and nobody else is dealing with it, Frank.
Well, I don't know if this committee is the committee that deals
Well-
with it. You're supposed to be dealing with the issues of police and fire.
I didn't think we were the ones that should handle feral cats, but we got hit with
I mean, you
that.
could
So,
go-
I mean, you know, I think being that we're such a popular committee, that we got one fire person from the fire department and you,
well,
nobody from staff, nobody from the police
I
department.
think if you had it on your agenda that you wanted to talk to the chief.
He would have been
I
here.
called.
He would come. But you
What?
need to put it on an agenda. Just can't be a free range,
Right.
meeting, and that's kind of what this is seems to be.
Right.
You know, and you guys are all over the place here. And we need to get back to what this committee is supposed to be, which is police and fire advisory. And that, in the originally, that was people, if they had complaints about what was going on with the police department, you guys would take those complaints and address that with the police or the fire. You know, and also, we used to meet with them and see what was on their mind and what they're doing. I mean, it just seems to me you're kind of getting far afield.
Well, we
from
think this is
from
a
what you're doing.
situation it could affect everybody in the city.
It certainly could, but is this
And-
committee the one to be doing that?
It's,
I-
technically, it's out of your purview. Homeless is not something that your committee has there's nothing that you can do. Yes, you can discuss it, but there's not anything that your committee can do. It is like Frank said, it's only to deal with those who have complaints against the police, complaints against the fire department, and to bring those issues to the committee. So homeless, that would be something that the city manager would have to be, you know, you could contact him and say, you know, who in the city, and then maybe they can do something. But for the police and fire, homeless is not on your purview to deal with or even to make recommendations for, unfortunately.
I mean, if that's something you guys want to do on your own time, that's fine, but that's really not what this committee is for. You know, I know you're looking for something to do, but you need to.
No, that's not the case, Frank, and that kind of pisses me off. To be quite honest with you, we weren't included at
Mr.
all
Patterson?
in the selection of a new fire chief.
Please
Police
lower
chief.
your voice.
So, if we're supposed to do what we're supposed to do, why didn't the city manager interface with us and keep us apprised of what was going on with the hiring of the new police chief?
I can't.
Because hiring and firing and lateral moves has nothing to do with the police and fire.
It's the police chief. It is.
But it does not, you cannot determine who is hired,
No,
who is
we
fired.
can't.
You can look at their resumes all you want, but that's not something this board is here to discuss. It's not to say, well, we don't like this person or we want this person.
No, didn't say that.
No,
either.
I'm just saying, it's not that.
Mr.
When
Chairman,
he is approved,
Yes.
when somebody is approved by the city manager to take that position, your committee has no oversee for that, is what I'm trying to say.
But we do have input from the community into what type of police chief do we have. We were told it was time to hire
Mr. Chairman, Craig
outside.
Emanuel,
Go ahead, Kurt.
I think we've digressed. We've had an excellent presentation from Sarah, and I'm greatly appreciative of her presentation on the homeless, because I think all of us in this community, our hearts go out to them, and it's getting extremely cold at night.
Yes.
And we've heard from the fire department and from Sarah as to what is being provided, and I think our community does tremendous things. But I think we should excuse our guest at this time
Yeah.
and
Right.
thank her for being here this evening.
You gave a great presentation.
Why, we-
Thank you.
I didn't know half of what you told us.
Well, now you know where you can go visit and find out.
Right.
And I'm
And
sure,
please come and visit us and have a tour and see what we do.
I'm sure they can use all the
Oh,
help.
by the way, you don't know how did the fundraiser go, which I participated in,
The
the,
Mariachi Festival?
yeah, were they real happy with the results, did you hear?
I believe, there was over 5,000 people that came through, and,
Contributed in some way or another, huh?
yeah, and,
That's a lot of people.
it's our, the biggest fundraiser, that's where a third of the operating budget for the shelter comes from, so, it was good, it was fun. Seemed like people had fun, so, yeah.
And it's-
I did,
Thank you.
I do wanna say one thing, and I don't know how, it bears onto this. I do know that it has something to do with homeless and it has something to do with fire, but, my mom actually lost her home to, squatters on the property next door. So, you know, it is an issue that needs to be dealt with, but I don't know that anyone community, any one person, any one committee could actually, it's a collaborative thing, but, you know, it does affect people, you know.
Lost her home because,
Squatters were in the property next door, they had a fire in a can, the wind blew and it took out my mom's, home.
Was
out
she,
in Hereford.
was this, where was that?
Out in Hereford.
Oh, well, Hereford, because
And it
we've
was-
had 2 incidences, if not 3 incidents of
Yeah.
that here in the last 10 years.
It was back
Two
in
of them recently.
2018.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think the important part of that is those people should not have been allowed to be squatting there out in the middle of nowhere, and whose fault it is, I don't really know, but that, you know, I can see how that relates to the police and the fire and the homeless. But I will go now.
Thank you,
Again,
sir, 'cause
thank
that
you
was
so much,
exactly
Sarah.
to my point when Frank cut me off. I
thank you
think,
for your
I will
presentation.
say,
Thank you.
Thank you.
that I don't have in front of me,
Have a blessed
Mr.
day,
Chairman.
guys.
Yes.
I like to be
Thank you
recognized.
for
I don't have
having
in
us.
front of me, nor do I remember since we meet so infrequently, but we all have perceptions of what the Police and Fire Advisory, is that not the name of it, committee, might mean. And it seems to me, Frank, to make an exception to your comments, that we, sitting on this committee, will not necessarily have to follow the ancient, tried, true, and failed. Oh, you only talk about complaints that somebody brings regarding these 2 official bodies, and then you get to talk about it and maybe make a suggestion of how it could be better. Because that's like not happening. In fact, it's never happened as far as I can tell. And I've been watching, I think I was on this thing 30 years ago. But anyway, the point is, we get to define what advisory to the
No.
police and fire means
No.
within.
The city code defines what
Within
your
the
scope
city
is.
code, and my guess
And does
is,
it
I
just
just
say
was saying,
complaints
I don't
only?
have it in front of me.
It tells you, it lists it. What I can do tomorrow is I'll send it out to you. Again, I believe Joelle sent it out already, but I'll send it out again. But we have to go by what's in the
Right, but
code.
here's the point. The point I'm trying to make is that when a citizen makes a complaint, like there are homeless people starting a fire at 2230 Brewery Avenue, somebody needs to go look into that. Oh, and then last week they started a fire above the post office, and a month ago.
But that's
in other
not a
words,
general-
If we make that complaint, any one of us on this committee, or someone comes to us and says, hey, we want to complain about the homeless,
Right.
And
But
how the
that's not
police
a
and fire
general-
is responding to it.
But that's not a general complaint about what the police are doing, about what the fire
Well,
is
yes, it
doing.
is, if it
We-
keeps
but
repeating.
We can all-
the
About
if-
that
Believe me, I'll
several
figure out how to
years-
make
Okay.
it fit on this committee.
All right, let me just speak one time and then we'll go. We can only help if we know about the problem. So them coming to you doesn't help the city to try to address the problem that we are having. Because coming to you, your board has no, for lack of a better term, jurisdiction over what the city does regarding homeless or not do, or what they don't do. So what you could do is if once you get those complaints, either call city clerk's office, call Joelle, email Mr. Pocken and say, hey, we've had several citizens who, could you look into this? And I'm sure that we can figure out what's going on, because sometimes what they don't understand is if you don't report it to the police, they can't help. If you don't report it to the fire, they can't help. And 9 times out of 10, they're not reporting it at all.
Well, I know that if you look at the problems with homelessness, if they don't start dealing with it early, it becomes a huge problem. And it becomes, I don't know, I can't compare us to California. But I know there are people that are having petty thefts.
Absolutely.
We know there are fires that are being started.
But if
And-
they're not there when if they do not call the police while it's happening, or they call it afterwards and say, well, so-and-so did it, they can't do anything, because just because you say so-and-so did it doesn't mean that so-and-so did it. So they can take your request, they can take the report, but if they don't have a person there that they can physically take care of or arrest or whatever they need to do, there's nothing they can do about it. And that's the same way with the fire. If somebody calls you and says there's a homeless passed out on the street, well, they should have called the fire department, not the committee.
Yeah, that's true, but there's people all over the community that are worried about the ramifications of the homeless problem in Bisbee.
Well, maybe
And
you should
it's-
contact your ward representatives and let them know that you would like the council.
He's
Well,
right
I'm
there
just
and he
saying,
didn't bring any pieces.
it takes more than, it takes a lot, but it takes 2 council people, or the mayor can approve it. But I think that's something that maybe not in this committee, but as individuals, you could speak to your
Right.
representatives and then have it move forward that way.
That's what I'm saying. I think that we really need to back up here on this committee and define what, look at the bylaws, and what it used to be was, we talked to the fire chief or to the police chief and about their practices and how people, feel about the practices they're doing. What are they doing? What kind of enforcement are they doing? What issues that the fire department might have. The homeless thing, it's certainly an important topic, but I
But
don't think this committee is the
It's
place.
affecting police and fire.
Yeah, it is, but we need to talk directly to the police and fire people, right, about if they're having issues with it. If there's anything that you could recommend to me that I can give to the city, or you as individuals, wanna contact your ward representatives and, with things.
Right now,
to-
we're just trying to understand the problem.
I get that.
And
What I'm saying though, this is such a huge thing that you're trying to encompass, it's really beyond, it's not the purview of this committee as it is set up by the city. So I would take a look at the bylaws that Nina will send out to you and try to refocus on that. I just think you guys are getting, not
Well,
that it isn't a
Frank,
worthwhile, not that it isn't a worthwhile thing, Tom, but it's just too big a project.
we didn't get any complaints about the parking lot in front of the courthouse. But we, and talking to fire, knew that it was a problem. That if the way people were parking, they would not be able to get an engine up there for the courthouse or the church. So we took on that problem. We didn't wait until one of them burned down.
That's
Somebody
more,
complained
that's
about it.
more in your area than the homeless.
I understand that, but wait, we don't wanna have Main Street lined with tents like they've got in LA.
Burbank.
Burbank?
Every city you can.
Well, I think Frank and I have given you all several suggestions on how to get
Okay.
that addressed. So I don't have any staff comments. Does anybody have any future agenda items?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
I would request that staff have with a discussion with our committee as to what you would like to see as topics, going back through the rules. and-
Yeah, I think that would be good to have a meeting about that.
Now you say staff, so you mean the police chief and the fire chief, correct? Or
Right.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to
I'll take it from whomever is,
Well-
if you feel that we are afield, is tell us how to get on field, is.
Okay.
You know, and it might,
From your
Okay,
bylaws.
well, that way I know if I need to invite them or not. I will invite them.
I think that would be good, proper to invite them and discuss with them how they see interaction between the committee and them.
Well,
Because that's what's supposed to take place, how
Right.
you can accomplish that and be more effective.
And I'd love
Because
to
those
have
are
that.
Okay.
those are the areas you need to be effective.
I'd love to have that discussion.
Yeah.
Okay, I got
So-
that.
So maybe at your next meeting, we get,
Another topic I have is the post office and the hours of closure, which is a city building.
Right, and they are
And that's
working
a
on,
res-
they're working on that.
Okay, well, it's a result of a theft in the building.
Yeah, but
Yes.
the contract is being negotiated for the renewal, which is coming up in February. I think it's up in February. So that's part of what they're negotiating is the times that it will be open.
we're trying to get it back open,
Good.
Yeah,
for sure.
so they are getting that back open.
Wonderful.
Do you want me to put that on there and just,
Well, I'd like information.
No, we-
because I get
I
a
can
lot of
get you.
questions from residents
Yeah,
who
they're-
are
they wanna know.
inconvenienced. by
Yeah,
it.
what I can do is I can get you some information and send it out to to the committee regarding the post office hours and what has been discussed.
And then our earlier discussion, whether we take homeless on in general, I'd like to see on the agenda a report of the number of fire calls related to homeless and the number of police calls related to homeless. Because if they're police and fire action, like whether they have a problem with it or the general public, or we specifically, not as a committee, but as individuals, whatever. I mean, I'm a little confused still of how one gets from individual concerns that citizens give us that we then give back to you. It's like, so what I'm saying is there seems to me there's information that both policemen have and firemen have that this committee could have because the type of calls, theft related, like Tom mentioned, homeless people, I mean, can you tell us how many homeless, how often the homeless are involved in assaults
So
or fires
Brandon
or
can
police
get that
calls
for
or
the
fire
next
calls?
meeting that'll be in February for 2022.
Right, I'd like to have that data.
Some of it is gonna be a little bit vague, some of it will be
Yeah.
That's all right.
And I'll
unintended
see if
findings,
they, I'll get in touch with
Rather
Julie
than
and
this.
Chief Cox and see if they can pull something like that. If they can't, then I'll see if maybe they can filter it somehow. Because I think their system's based on addresses or locations, not on the general,
Right,
I don't think it says homeless on there is what I'm saying.
no.
I think it calls it whatever
Right.
whatever it is, the disturbance.
people
So it'd be like
start-
the address.
So if people
Right.
start complaining to us about the homeless, breaking into cars, then we can take it up?
If not,
It's more about the practices.
right, it's about the practices of the police and fire, not about, certain
Not about being a
things.
complaint department.
Right.
No, but that's what you're saying.
No.
Is we gotta field complaints from the citizens.
Well, that's one of the things.
Right.
But I think the way I've always understood it, Tom, is it's more about
The procedures and the ways.
You know, how the fire department and the police department are interacting with the community.
Right.
And if somebody had a complaint about, they didn't like what procedures were going on, then you could investigate that and make recommendations.
Well, I
to-
think
to the
that was
fire
part of
department.
the reason we were doing this, is because we're seeing, look at how many encampments just the captain had.
Right, but there's really nothing you can do about that, other than you got a little education tonight about what one group is doing, and that was interesting. But I think we need to let's get together with the police chief, the fire department, and see how.
Just deal with the
how-
criminal homeless.
Well, let's see how they wanna interact with this committee, and how you guys can actually work.
Maybe their challenges that they're seeing.
Yeah, there might be things that they would like to have you help them with, or whatever, so.
Well, it helps when they show up.
Well, right, and that's what we're gonna do, Tom, the next
Right.
meeting.
This is the second meeting in a row, there's been nobody from the police department.
Well, Chief Cox was in I believe, a conference, so he didn't get back until.
I didn't ask for the chief.
No, I'm just saying, there's nobody other than,
They're understaffed, Tom. Calm
Right.
down.
they're understaffed,
So is the
so-
fire department.
but they do have Brandon who does come and he does deal with the reports and stuff, because I deal with him on a daily basis with reports sometimes. So, there's not a police representative at this point.
But we could assume, don't you think, that when there's no address for something, like.
That maybe. I just don't know if that's what that
old
means.
Bisbee call or that call in Warren might have been related to homeless, so. it
Right,
could-
I'll
it doesn't
ask her
have to
if
be
there's a
exact.
way,
It could be a
right.
congregate,
You-
possibly, potentially.
There was a time, you remember, when we had 2 police officers and the chief,
Mm-hmm.
2 people from the fire department and the chief. We
Well,
had a
both
council
of
rep,
those
we had the mayor or the
departments-
city manager,
We've been
or
through
or
COVID,
both.
things have been upside down,
I
we
understand.
need to try to get back on
You
track.
know.
And that's what we're trying to do at this next meeting.
Right.
okay?
Wonderful.
Sounds great.
All right.
Katie?
Mr. Chairman, one of the questions that I would have, that several people have asked me about regarding the police department is what types of calls do they respond to and when do they take a police report?
Okay,
Okay.
that's tough
That's,
stuff.
that's something I can, so you said what types of calls and when they respond?
And when they respond, and do they automatically do a police report? Do they do a field information report? What kind of a report do they do? If I were to call up and say, I have kids down here on the Vista Park destroying the lights, the Christmas lights that have just been put up.
Okay,
Is there anybody there? No, but there's criminal damage, several trees, the lights have been torn down, et cetera, but we don't respond to that. Isn't that a crime? Isn't criminal damage a crime?
they do respond to criminal damage because we do get I don't know, it's called the victim impact when they destroy,
Right.
city property. We get that from the police department and we forward that on to the city attorney. So if it does go to court, we're able
Right.
to get our,
So the police would respond to that type of a call and take a report?
I'm not sure if it's a full report or like a victim report. I'm not quite sure how that
That's
works.
something we can talk to.
But I will
the chief
ask them.
about.
I will ask them.
When we had a lot of complaints about barking dogs, and most of you were on,
Yeah,
it seemed like it was a huge problem. So we got the reports, the chief put together a complete list of all the barking dog complaints, and when we got done, it was like 80% of the complaints were 2 houses.
Yep.
The problem basically went away when we defined what was causing the
Well,
problem.
that's why I'm saying we need to refocus the committee, so.
I understand that, Frank. We're concerned that by the time it gets to us, it's gonna be people that, people that are getting hurt, people that are getting robbed, people that are, is it driving visitors away?
Right.
That is police.
all right, well, let's go back because we're on the future agenda items. And if there's no more, then
When is our next meeting, Nina?
February, it's February. I'll tell you, I'll send the notice out tomorrow.
Okay,
Look in your emails though tonight. I thought she was sending them out before she left.
There was, yeah, I think there was something.
Sent out for that, yeah. I'll look at though, but I'll resend it out when I send out the code part.
Okay.
And then if I need any clarification, I'll email you and Mr. Emmanuel.
I appreciate you folks being on this committee. I know it's time and you're concerned and hard work. All I'm asking is just to try to refocus and let's make it more efficient. Rather than.
Well, I think we are efficient. The
Well,
reason we're
well-
looking at other areas is we've solved all the problems brought to us, Frank. We are probably the most
Okay,
efficient committee.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, well, when was the last time you saw a barking dog complaint? Okay, do you notice, you can get up to if there was a fire at the courthouse, you could get to it, right? See?
Finding the synergy between the city and the committee.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
the fire department and the
Yeah,
police
that's what we
department
need to.
will help us all.
Right.
Yes, yes.
I'm excited about our next meeting.
Yeah, okay, right, so.
Sounds great.
Are you gonna be here for that?
Probably not.
Oh, that's it, just light a fire and split.
I just was doing a favor for Miss Joelle.
You'll never be back.
Captain, thank you for being here tonight. We
Really appreciate you being
No
here.
problem. You guys.
And it really, I think, to me, I thought it connected the problem to our committee, but we'll talk about that at the next meeting.
And Frank, thank you for your
Yeah,
time here.
Well, he's always here.
I know he is, and I appreciate it.
I mean,
You know,
So
because
we just wanna-
we're all trying to help,
We
and
wanna make it
we're trying to
work.
find ways
Right.
to help.
Yeah, we just wanna make it work, that's,
we just see a lot of the criminal activity and prior problems in other communities is coming because the homeless problem got out of control. And I would hope we wouldn't wait till then, so, does anyone want to make a motion to adjourn?
Okay?
I'll make the motion to the region.
I'll second that motion.
All against? All right, we're.